Hi there, Mary Buckham here, and this will be our last Q&A for the sexual tension course. As you get into the classroom, if you go to the chat bar and let me know you're on board, that's wonderful. We should start here in a few minutes as soon as I see folks signing in and are here. This is also an opportunity to raise any questions you might have or anything you think I need to know about. Yay, Sarah's on board. Yay, good to see you. Thank you for the well wishes. It's appreciated. Told Tech Guy that if he had any more health scares, I was looking for a replacement, and he's shaping up just fine as a result. I'm so glad, Sarah. Sarah's indicated that she loved the class. It's been an amazing class with amazing writers in it, and I think that makes a huge difference. And I'm just so impressed by the willingness of everyone to help everyone else and give feedback and to cheer people on, because I always maintain that we need two types of groups around us as a writer. We need the group that's going to tell us what we don't want to hear, and then we need the group that supports us unconditionally and just allows us to go into the closet, suck on our kneecaps for a while, and then come back and start writing again. So I think you found that in this particular course this time, and I'm very, very thrilled about that. I love seeing students coming back from other courses, because then I get to keep up on the progress of these stories. Yay, Erin's here from Australia. Lovely to see you. And Donna from Canada. I hope that the storms have abated a bit, Donna, from your end. Erin, was that the homework that I gave feedback on homework last night around midnight my time, and then I did go to bed. But I know that there are some postings today, and I will get in and do those. I'm used to. I know any homework that posted this morning, I will get to this afternoon, probably later, because I have 2 more things done to do before I can come back and get to the computer. But I really appreciate, Donna told me that she had posted earlier homework in the earlier stages, and I'm really glad that she did, because it gets buried and I have to go through every one of the postings to double check and see where it might be. So I don't mind a heads up at all. It has been one of those weeks, hasn't it? Understatement. So this is our opportunity here to ask any last minute questions, to if there's any ahas that you were surprised to learn about sexual tension. I've seen huge improvement in the postings, and again, some make it look easy, some I know are a little more challenged by it, but that's okay. That's how we learn, is we don't learn when we don't see what might be missing on the page, or what word choice might be problematic for a reader and why. And when I give you feedback like that, it is to let you know it's always your choice what you want to do with your work. So again, I'm only seeing this much of a passage a lot of times, and I realize that, but I also want to, if I give feedback to one person and they decide not to take it, again, which is fine, but somebody else might think, I didn't even realize, but I'm doing that same thing. So that's why I can be kind of specific on the feedback, and that can be challenging. We all come to writing from wherever we're at. And when we take a course, that's where we're at. And the intention is to move further along that learning curve. And to me, the best way is to get feedback. And even if it's feedback we don't want to hear about. Good, that Judith picked up exactly what the opportunity here is in a classroom like this. She says, reading your comments on other submissions helps as much as the comments on mine. Yes, because you may have done one assignment and it worked very easily and it came very naturally, and then you do the next one and it doesn't come as naturally. And looking at everybody else's can give you an idea of what might be, you know, it's kind of like riding a bike. Do you ever remember riding the bike? And it's like that first time that you go by yourself and you think, I can do this, I can do this. And then you find out there's a little bit more to it than you realized. Hey, Meg's on board. Thank you so much for getting here. Suzanne says, how long are the Facebook videos going to stay up? I'm going to go back and record them onto my phone so I can look back on them. This material in the course is yours indefinitely. So what happens here in about 2 or 3 weeks, if Tech Guy comes up, he will go in and make the videos available on the home page or on the Teachable site where the homework and everything else is. So because Facebook is going through some changes right now, that is making it problematic starting another course today. And Facebook now isn't talking to the video people type of thing. So I don't want anything dependent on Facebook. I want it, that's why we'll be taking those videos. So in the next 2 to 3 weeks, if you can get in there and you want to copy them on your own phone, that's great, but they will be up in the classroom so that you can keep it indefinitely. And then if the next time I teach this course, if I add anything new to it, you're also will be notified because you get that too. It's not fair that you're in the debut class and next time I think, oh, this would be really good, let me add this to it. I want to make sure that that's available to you too. So let's see here. All right. BA says, writing is hard, even if it's fun. Absolutely. And that's in my live workshops, oftentimes the first thing I will say is no one is allowed to say it's hard. That's a given. You know, anything that you really are challenging yourself to do is hard, is one of those words that can stop us dead in our tracks when what we're looking for is it's challenging. But that's how we grow. We don't grow when it's easy and we've done it always. I love that Sarah says that she went back to some of her favorite books and saw that there was conflict there. And that's, as readers, we don't even realize how much of aspects of craft are on the page. Judith says, I have a question about application for different genres. I write squeaky clean and have built an audience. I'm nervous that using some of my answers into my work in progress, while great for the lessons, is good. It might lose me some readers. And that's absolutely. To me, you were learning not for a particular book. You were here to learn the concept. And then by learning the concept, you get to apply it in any way you want. You can make it lighter. Now you know what to take out to have less tension. And you can basically, I have a hyper dog here. He's not happy. So you can ramp it up, you can ramp it down. The point is if you stayed at the level that you are now and you wanted to write something else, if you wanted to write something under another pseudonym so it doesn't interfere with your squeaky clean, then now you know how to do it. And that's, Erin makes a point that she writes sweet rural romance, which you can use stage 1 through stage 7, and that's like what Judith is doing. But I also write sensual romantic suspense, which I can use all of the stages and will. And that's the point. Whatever you're writing today may not be what you're writing next year. And if we limit ourselves before we even try some of the, particularly the later stages, then we are going to miss opportunities. So there's nobody saying you have to use all 12 stages. But if you stop learning at a particular stage, you just stop. Who knows what, you know, you might be asked to be in an anthology. VA is saying that in Rita Rainville's questions, and I think that was the first week, I think those were handed out the first week, the one she uses to kickstart the development of awareness between the two characters was very useful. I loved the last question and had funny responses that surprised me. Such a great tool. And that's just it. And again, we all get myopic, it's just myopic, about the work we're working on now, and we forget to step back and look at the bigger picture of where, you know, when this and how to use it. I think the Rita Rainville thing, I went to a talk to her, God, back in the caveman days, and I thought that was a wonderful list. And so whenever you find a tool like that, in my mind, I want to share it with somebody. I want to say, this worked for me. Maybe it'll work for somebody else. So I want to give folks more material than they can possibly use right now for a current book, but it's going to be there. Because to me, that is one of the challenges with going to conferences, at least for myself, is that you would go and you would listen and you'd write notes like crazy, and you'd go back to your work and you think, oh, I'm doing this. Yeah, I'm already doing this. But you didn't get to see, you were just looking at that one work in progress or one manuscript. So that's that. It's there for you whenever you need it. Sarah says, can some of the love scenes be without tension? Yep. When they're in love, like the calm before the storm, before the black moment crisis comes up, absolutely. Absolutely can be that. Because it's like this, in a novel, we want to see the possibility, particularly if it's a romance, the possibility that these two, this could work for them. This is good. We want them to get together. And we know something's going to tear them apart because of the place in the length of a novel. So that makes it even more poignant. It's like William Shakespeare used to, before he killed somebody, before there was a major, not bloodbath, but bad thing about to happen, he would bring in the comedic relief. He would make people laugh. He would make them enjoy it because it opened up their emotions. So they felt the bad thing even more. So that sounds very conniving, but it is a, you do want to have some things that are just the relationship building. Like in Pretty Woman, they had the moment where after the night that they flew off to San Francisco to see the opera and actually made love that night as opposed to just have sex. And the next day, he took time off from work. And there's a scene where they're sitting in a park and she's taking her shoes off so he can feel the grass. He's still working. He just can't not. But there's a lot of that they actually took out of the real movie because they didn't want to spend too much time there. But that's what made you want that couple to get together, because it wasn't just about she wants the nice clothes. Oh, that was a good idea. She wants the nice clothes and he wants the sex or the perspective that she brings him. It was that they could get together in a whole way, not just in what brought them together. So Topaz, Mary, thank you for teaching this class. I plan to send my manuscript to the editor before starting the class, and I'm so glad I waited. I didn't know what sexual tension meant. Thank you, Topaz. Now I'm going over the book again, reworking my sentences. I keep repeating to myself specific details, emotional response, conflict, equals sexual tension as I read it over. I'm so glad because it really can make a difference. And I saw in passing this morning that you were in the middle of that in the Florida mess. So I really appreciate your coming to class, knowing that what a challenging week you had. There's, it's not called the Ides of March, it's the Mercury retrograde that just started recently, and you sure can tell, because that basically creates setbacks in a lot of different ways for a lot of different people. But those are the opportunities that when the universe basically says, stop, or pay attention to this, or slow down, or on good times you can do 27 things at once, but that doesn't mean you should, run your life that way. So I'm glad that you were here this week and got a chance to see that. There are specific things we can do that can enhance what we as the author are thinking or have on the page. And I love Sarah's description, rubber band, back and forth, and big yank. That's kind of the short version of how to write a romance. But it's very apropos. So now the fun time is when my tech guy has gotten to the point that he'll say, look they jumped to stage 8 without going through the earlier stages. This is just wrong. And it's like, honey, we're in a movie theater. Quiet down. Yes, we know this. And so I hope you print out that list of the 12 stages. Now, I was informed that someone who is an anthropologist or something was upset that we were using the 12 stages. because Desmond Morris, there's been other people since him. I mean, he was back in the 60s, I think. There were other people since him that repudiated some of the stages for certain species. And I want to be upfront about that, because he may have been repudiated in the science for anthropology, but we're not studying that. And to me, these 12 stages were presented to me way, way, way back when. And it was Linda Howard who taught them. And Ruth Samuel, also writing as, Barbara Samuel writing as Ruth Wint. And a lot of the names that people were referring to, who, when I would ask them the question in their interviews, who do you think writes great sexual tension? And we all learned from this list. So to me, it was like, no, I don't want to throw this out. If I was teaching a group of scientists specifically studying species, yes, then I would not rely on research necessarily that's that old. But man, this stuff works. So there's no reason for me to kick it aside and learn how cuttlefish something, or amoebas do sex, because it doesn't matter. BA says she agreed. Writers are applying the stages, not using them for a scientific study. Absolutely. So if you find that, I was given a couple of books. There's one called The Truth Gene, and I've read that book. But to me, you had to wade through so much other stuff that, yeah, I'm lazy. Let me zero in on this aspect of writing to make it easier to improve that particular element of the craft. So there's been some great questions here. Again, I will get back to the Facebook group in order to respond to the late posting, so don't give up on me. Topaz wants to know, when will the romance version of Break Into Fiction be available for purchase? The romance version is one that 5 writers and I have, the first year, we met once a week to analyze movies. And then the last half of the second year, we met once a month. And I was breaking it down into sub-genres of romance. So romantic comedy, romantic suspense, women's fiction. I think we pulled together 5 different, with enough examples that would be, and I use movies because most people around the world can access the movies, and older movies are simply because usually you can get them for free in the library, or you can get a inexpensive, oftentimes they're on Netflix or Amazon or whatever, those things. So those are I'm just looking, so they were finished this year, the actual movie analysis, getting at least 3 to 4 movies to analyze, and the templates all created. And now I have a couple of interviews to do with people, and then they will probably come out as e-versions initially. And I always keep thinking there's got to be one more thing I can put in here. So I'm hoping, again, by next year, but I also want to do body language as a book for writers. And with the workload, just getting these live events up and running and recorded and written and polished and re-recorded and uploaded, I thought it was going to happen this year and it didn't. So it's going to be a question, which one do I want to get out first, on the romance, or do I want to get the body language out? So it's a coming, it's available. And the romance version is also the templates and stuff that I give out for that and the examples. In February, there's going to be a class taught on that, 4-week class like this one. And I give out that information in the templates and the movie examples in that course. Hillary says, will you be doing body language as a course? Yes, I did it this year in the spring. In fact, Doc was in that course, and it was kind of a blur because I had major oral surgery and the last week or two. So I was on some good medication, but I can't remember a lot of the last weeks or so of that. But yes, I will be having that. The question will be, I'm going to be doing the romance plotting around February, depending on where we are physically and if there's internet access. And then to me, it makes sense to have this course on sexual tension as a follow-up course to the romance, and then do the body language, because that's for all writers, and that will probably be next to the general plotting course like I'm doing this coming month. So yes, I will be doing body language as a course, because again, I think it's helpful to get feedback on your own work. So I'm glad, Sarah, that you get a lot from the live events. To me, I like the interaction with individuals. So, and Donna said the course was very worth it, and it changed her writing, and I could see that in her writing. So that was really, really fun to have this kind of period between that course and now to see how far she had. BA asked, is your website the best place to find your upcoming courses? The newsletter is the best site. Is the best way to find out, because there's only 2 of us kind of juggling everything, new courses, updating old courses, everything. And we're trying to figure out where we're going to be in 3 months or 6 months or 8 months. And it's always up in the air. So the best place is if you're on the newsletter list. If you aren't, and you just go to my website and sign up for the newsletter, you get a free copy of, you see, yep, one of these books. I think it's the blue one. You get a free copy of the ebook for that, and a book of quotes that I personally found helpful. And I'll be writing a new quote book to give out to everybody on the newsletter list this coming year. So thank you for being on the newsletter. And Erin says, I'm trying to get you out to Australia in August 2023. Leave that spare. All right. Because that, I'll make a note that, because I am getting requests for workshops and that kind of stuff. already through the spring and the summer. So BA saying subscribe to the newsletter. I greatly appreciate how much time and effort you put into your course. This course was life-changing. Oh, help my writing reach a much better level. Okay, now I'm going to get all sloppy and I'm going to leak on Tech Guy's computer and it's going to blow it out. So thank you, BA. I really appreciate it. And Erin's talking about the RWA conference, Romance Writers of Australia. I really cut back almost to nothing my live events simply because the exhaustion, traveling back and forth in planes and everything else. And so during the pandemic, it was like in many ways a godsend for me. Yes, I get to stay. But for Australia, I will make an exception. Hillary says she's taken the plotting for romance and now the sexual tension, and she's excited for the body language course to round out the learning. And that is part of my intention, is to make these things connect so that it's not just an isolated, oh, I learned how to do this and end of what needs to be learned. To me, there are the basics, and that's the plotting courses, that if you don't have a sound structure, it doesn't matter how pretty wallpaper you put on the walls, it's going to fall apart. So, but then these other courses, I'm going to revamp my writing active hooks and writing active setting, because those were the two areas that I saw people stumble and fall and not understand. We use hooks for almost everything, and without a clear idea of the hook that can keep the reader reading. And, but I have focused the last 2 years on getting these two plotting courses, the body language and then the sexual tension, up and running. BA says, if I missed the announcement, when is the body language? I don't know for sure, but it's probably going to be, two courses are going to be in the spring. And that's going to be plotting for romance and the sexual tension. Then the body language course is either going to be early summer, right before everybody gets busy with family at home, etc. And then the plotting for general fiction at the end. So it's going to be, I would say, if I do February and then I do March, April for the first two courses, then I'll probably do the other course in late May for body language. I try to keep it so what people are not swamped with other demands. Oh, look, I've got the I'm a saint, I'm gonna disappear. So any other questions here? I appreciate folks asking, when particular courses are, or I have done a lot of 90-minute courses, so kind of micro elements, and I've done a series that I really enjoyed, and I might want to expand that, and that's on archetypes. There's a like 90 to 100 minute on male archetypes, then there's one on female archetypes, and then there's one on how they interact with each other. And then there's a bonus one with villains, and because they are an archetype with their own self, but putting those into a group of a bigger course that is more comprehensive. So by getting these 4 big courses that I'm wrapping up next month, it will give me time to go back and explore some of those other things that I find utterly fascinating. And I want to do more on mythology, because that, go back to Campbell and beyond, and because those are stories, and those stories had a purpose, and they had, the different mythology of the world. And how do you not think in terms of, oh, I can do an urban fantasy and it's going to be set in the Celtic environment? That's one way to use it, but there's more ways to use mythology and how to understand it and how to translate it into story. Regardless if you're writing a mystery or you're writing a romance, or you're writing a fantasy, there's a lot of meat in mythology. So that could be possibly one of the upcoming longer courses. And I like the longer courses, not because they cost more money, but because they give you more time to inevitably. I'm still getting people this week emailing me that they're ready to start the challenge that ended last week. And because things happen and we miss it. But if we have a month and enough time to do the homework, enough time to play with the concepts, enough time to read other books and see, is Mary just making stuff up? Or does it really apply to the books that you're reading? So it gives, as a student, in my mind, it gives you enough time to dive into it. But having said that, this is my opportunity to ask you, what worked for you? What would you like to see different? Don't know if I can promise it, but anything that you Aaron would like me to do it at a different time, probably, because that way you can access it when you live outside of the US. So BA says the assignments aimed at finding scenes in books and in movies, then analyze them, was helpful. Aaron wants me to be her editor. I am not an easy editor. I usually work with maybe 1 or 2 people a year. And I figure if you can get past me, you can get past almost anybody. But that doesn't guarantee that another editor is going to see the world the same way that I do. So BA said that the writing assignments were specific, and I appreciated that. Thank you. I also am going to be making changes to the challenges that I have ahead of time, because they're killing me. They just are killing me energy-wise. So as we move forward, the same kind of challenge that you did before we did this course, that's going to be changed, and the same with the plotting courses. So I just want to give you the heads up there. So examples to print off and keep for reference works well for me. Reiterating specific emotion, conflict helped. Good. And I'm that way too. If somebody tells me once, because as learners, we all have a different learning style. There's 3, I've been told, that it is, some people learn by someone talking, some people learn by reading, and the third way is a kinesthetic way, where you have to write it. You have to do something with it in order to anchor it. And I know when I was starting out, I had those notebooks like in college with spiral binders, and I had one for hooks. I had one for setting. I had one for sexual tension. And come to find out, in this country, back at Benjamin Franklin time, they were called common sense books. And common sense books is because books were so rare that using everybody didn't have a book. So you would take it from a lending library, and then you would write notes in longhand about the parts of that book that you really, really learned from. And then you give the book back, but you have that, and it's called a common sense book. And it was like, oh, I'm doing something that Benjamin Franklin did himself. But that's the way I learned. And that's why I'm recommending, when you see good writers create sexual tension, that it makes a huge difference now that you know what you're exactly looking at. And Sarah mentioned it earlier about the conflict, that she saw how much when she was reading a book and how much conflict there was. And that is why, when you can start seeing it in other people's work, because you've either written it down yourself or you've been exposed to it in this class, you can start enhancing your learning curve. Sarah said, I think I learned the most from the labeling assignment. It was the most difficult for you. And you nailed it. When it's difficult, you know that there's something there to get. And that's why I really appreciated when people were willing to put that assignment, because a number of individuals, again, you think you know it because you've been reading examples that I've been telling you about for the last 4 weeks. But until you do it yourself, you really don't. So I'm glad that that assignment worked for you. Hillary was a middle school writing teacher for 20 years, and the quality of your teaching plus the feedback you give plus the time leads to growth, if the writer does the work, of course. Kudos to you, Hillary. I've never been a teacher, never trained as a teacher. And so sometimes I'm not sure if I'm approaching things, but I'm approaching things the way that I know that I would want it. And so it works for a lot of people, thank heavens. Doesn't work for everybody though, and that's okay too. Because all you need though is this approach does not work, and then you can find an approach that does. And it says, I also found the class fantastic. Thank you, Meg. And the group very invested in helping. Kudos. Absolutely. This group has been wonderful in the support you've given each other and the feedback. We don't have this kind of content in France for romance. I would like to participate more, but I was always in late. And part of that, Meg, is the time zone differences, and you deserve the big gold star for working in 2 languages and still getting homework in. So don't beat yourself up. You've done a great job and have a very compelling story. So please let us know as it goes on where we can find that. And Hillary liked that labeling thing to show where she was confused. And that oftentimes, because we're adults, most times, some of us act like adults sometimes, but it's uncomfortable to be, we think of it as I made a mistake, and it's not a mistake. It's like, oh, this is what I can now hone in and study some more. Because if it's kind of like how we deal with conflict in our real lives, that we work as adults most of the time, kind of downplaying conflict. And then we get on the page and it's like, bring it up, bring more conflict, bring it up. And it can be really challenging. And yet it's simply because once you're an adult, you spend a lot of your time, you're supposed to know things before you get to learn things. And particularly with writing, yes, thank God there are books out there. But to me, that's not enough. That's not enough push-pull. That the books help, but to me, it is that there are many, many days I wish I was a pat on the head kind of teacher that could just make everybody feel better and good. But when I tell you that, I really mean it, because you can also see me telling other people, not quite, or almost, or consider this. So to me, that's that kind of teacher. When people would complain about the teachers in high school or college, it was like, who's the hardest teacher? And it was like, then that's the person I want to learn from, because they're going to challenge me. They're not going to let me slide by. Okay. Topaz says, I really learned from the examples that you broke down. And that's, to me too, is telling somebody this example has these elements doesn't help me unless I can see it, unless I am, maybe I'm anal retentive that way, but I want to see, how does it work? How does this word work, or this phrase work extra hard, or how does the power of verbs make a huge difference? Judith, I really enjoy the examples and would love to be able to read the rest of the story for many of them. And that's part of the fun of getting some examples that were pulled out of the book. Might have been their best example, but they still have a lot. They nailed this, they got this. And you saw it in people's homeworks in this classroom too. You know, and I love that, as I started seeing people saying, I love how you were able, the voice example here recently, where you repeated the voice thing, and a couple of people said, you did a great job here, and you kept it to one line, and you could almost see the whole development of the story. And that's when you know that you're nailing it. Hillary says, I love that we get to rewatch the videos again and again. Now that I know where I'm confused, I can go back. Please don't become a pat on the head teacher. Well, as Tech Guy says, they would. My idea is much more, instead of a pat on the head, is a bitch slap. You know, come on, get with it. You can do this. And I know you can do it, because you wouldn't be here challenging yourself if you couldn't. So you're showing up, you're doing the work, and that makes the difference. In this month alone, every person in this class, particularly those that participated, are in a whole different place than they were when they started the course. A whole different understanding, and you can see it in their writing. And I think that's very important to keep in mind. I sometimes shared where I used to teach a lot of classes online, but they were not interactive. They were simply, I'd post a lecture and then everybody would post their homework. And there was one student, and every course I would try to reach out to those, particularly the ones that I hadn't heard from, to see how they were doing. Did they get lost? And what was happening? And she'd say, oh no, I'm taking 5 or 6 other courses. I was like, wow. And I finally got to meet this woman at a live event. And I really love it when I get to, it's like I know everybody by their email address. But come to find out, she was what's one of those math kind of, who works in aeronautics and that kind of stuff. Anyway, it was that number thing. And at that course. I'm talking to her on the side, and she said, well, I've taken 258 courses in the last 2 years. Am I ready to be published now? And I was really surprised because my first thought was, great for you taking all those opportunities. But I knew from my course, she never did the homework. She never got feedback. And there weren't a lot of teachers that gave that much feedback. And I thought, what a missed opportunity. That this is not like when you go to college and you simply have to have it checked off that you did X number of courses in particular fields and you get your degree. And I thought, well, 2 years of, she might have been reading the material from all these courses, which puts her a little bit ahead, but not availing yourself of those opportunities to get feedback. And for those who have been in the writing world for a while here, have seen that go down and down and down and down. In fact, most published authors are told by their editors or agents not to read other people's work because we're in a litigious, good big word, society. And if you happen to you read something in their work and there was a name like Trevor, and all of a sudden 2 years later, you're writing a story and you think, oh God, I got to find a name. And it's like, Trevor, I'll put it down. That person, there are instances where they've come back and they've sued. And even if they find that there's nothing to it, it's still the time, the stress, the aggravation, and the money that you put out to counter a frivolous suit. You're still, so authors don't give like they used to give because it can come back and bite them. BA says the 4 steps of the recent voice-to-voice assignment was challenging in a very positive way. It really made me think and consider the character development and how they changed through the story. Good. Because to me, that was one of the easiest stages, particularly to do short. And I wanted to make the point that particularly if you're doing 1 through 7, those stages get repeated in a story. And if you take one of your favorite stories and you actually analyze them, you start seeing, here we go. Here's stage 3 done once, twice, 27 times in the book. And we would not see that otherwise. Erin, I love it. Yeah, you did it beautifully, B. Absolutely. And the point is she was willing to do it even though it was a stretch. And those things that we do that do create that stretch, all it means is that our comfort zone is being expanded. And what you know now in just this one class is very different from where you were a month ago. And that's how you keep moving forward with your writing. And again, even if you don't do all stages, now you know the power of particularly those first 4 or 5 stages, how revisiting them again and again. And you will see it now in other people's works, that you will see that they will combine those stages deeper and deeper into the story. And the person that they are at the end of the story is different than the person they were at the beginning, because romance is a commercial fiction. But to show it from the sexual awareness and tension development is amazing. There's the Ruth Wind, Scent of the Rain. I could go back to that book multiple times and learn something new from that author. Oh, Erin says, I've done a few courses over the years, but this is the course I've gained the most from. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Sarah says the feedback was incredibly helpful. And I know I pushed Sarah. So coming from you, Sarah, that means a lot. And knowing I would get feedback gave me that extra push to post my homework. That is where I feel I got the most growth, struggling through implementing the concepts that were taught. Listening isn't all that hard. Implementing is, but in an incredibly valuable way. And to me, that's how I learn. And to me, it makes sense. Don't tell me, show me. And then when I screw up, which you do, because that's part of the learning process, then you show me again. It's like, okay, now I got it. Hillary, I've been so wowed by the growth of everyone. I lost a week from being sick. I know, you got COVID. I just saw that. I hope you're feeling much better. When I came back to Facebook, it blew my mind reading week 3 and week 4 homework. The change in people's writing is very evident. Way to go. And that's what I was seeing too, is this. As writers, and I believe I've said this before, is that it's not that we can't see the forest for the trees. We're up against the bark with our writing. We're doing it one word at a time to make it make sense. And what that means is we can often lose sight of the growth we've done, of the change in our own writing. And that's why one of the last assignments was to go back and revisit. And again, as Judith pointed, you don't need to use anything that you did in this class in a current project or in a future project. It's there for you to understand, though, how to use it. And that's what matters. That guy said he'd come in and keep the sun out of my eyes. But I think he got busy, which reminds me, Aaron and Judith both pointed out that one of the things that got loaded did not upload correctly. So did you work on that?
It's been reloaded.
Yeah, he's been, oh, isn't he good? Thank you. He's had to download it and he's re-uploading it now, so it will be better. And that was the stages of kind of like after sex. So what happens then? And that's in week 4. Oh my God, I can actually see. So if something goes crash in the background. Nope. So Sarah says, you did push me. Thank you. So grateful. It's been scary for me to jump into this whole fiction writing thing, but you've helped me get over some of that fear. Absolutely. It is. That's why I have no doubt of what you'll be able to do moving forward, because what I saw is even when you got very specific, not necessarily nice feedback, you did not say, oh, forget her, who she know, what does she know, etc., and give up. You came back. And to me, that is what the whole, and we don't get that a lot, particularly if we're going indie publishing, because we don't have, this is the role that editors and agents used to help writers with. You're almost there, but not quite. Only what happened is they got so overworked and underpaid that it became, no, thank you. And you had no idea what you needed to fix and what you needed to return to in order to make it better. So kudos to everyone who got a almost from me and went back and worked it again. Because another things that we have a tendency to do as writers is we write it and it's like, oh my God, it's out. But then we start treating it like if it's in stone. And, you know, sometimes people give you feedback that doesn't help. Yeah, it doesn't. to me, there's a difference between criticism and a critique. A criticism says no. A critique says almost, and this might be how you can fix it. This is the issue that I'm seeing, and I'm only one person. And that's the intention of it, is not to say no, because the longer you write, the more you're going to find that there's a lot of people who will say just flat out no, but not give you anything. And they're coming from a lot of different places. So that's not helpful. Yes, tech guy has job security for the rest of his life. He knows this. His life might be short, though, if he keeps doing health issues. But we will muddle along. So those who have posted after midnight last night and this morning, I will get to it hopefully by the end of the day. And if I can't get to everybody's, I'll put a note out that I'm still playing catch up on stuff. So if you haven't gotten your homework in, there's still that opportunity. You can post it today and I'll work on it. And I want to thank you, each and every one of you, for being the amazing people that you are, the amazing writers that you are, and want the very best for you. I hope you keep in touch, and I see you in a future class, or I just see you online and I can wave at you and say, I know that person. So take care and have fun with the writing. Okay. Signing off here.